Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mysteryred Reads. I am your host, Mysteryred, and this is my disclaimer. This beta read in Concrete is at the author's request. This video is for learning purposes. Today we're looking at a piece of fan fiction. We are actually looking at something that I have written. I am doing another holiday bard read for you. This is The Night Before Turtley Christmas, one of my own pieces. Really quick. I wanted to try to show you guys the progression in my own writing as it evolved. Now, I wrote some pieces and then over in fanfiction.net, and then I eventually got my account on Archive of Our Own and uploaded some of my better works that I liked to Archive. And so a lot of them have the same publishing date over here. And if you see them all with the same date, that doesn't mean that's when they were written. That's when I uploaded them to the archive. So the original publishing dates would be over on fanfic.net. But I know that I wrote my bards probably within like a year or so of each other, because I was writing a whole lot there for a couple of years when my kids were little. And so this is an older piece, just like the first one I read for you, which was from 2015. So you're talking about 10 years ago. And so part of it is I get to show you what my writing was like, and then hopefully eventually I get to show you one of my newer pieces, and you can see where my writing is today. With that, just for the season, as my treat to you, this is The Night Before a Turtley Christmas. Michelangelo strained to peek between his brother's arms, then their heads, struggling to see the fluffy white powder slowly piling up before the drainage grate. Raph palmed his little brother's face, pushing him back. The soles of Mikey's boots were worn, and he slid on the greasy concrete. He tripped over his own feet and flailed for something to grab onto, found a strong hand gripping his arm. His gaze drifted to peer into the liquid brown eyes of the one who steadied him. "Come, my sons, we have time for a story before bed." Master Splinter smiled at Michelangelo, releasing him, then beckoning Leo, Raph, and Donnie away from the grate. "Oh, I want to choose." Donatello turned so fast his shell bumped into Leo, knocking him into Raph. "Get off me," Raph protested. "It was an accident," Leo retorted. "Can I pick the story, Sensei?" Mikey begged, with pleading blue eyes fixed on Splinter. "I'm fairly certain it's my turn," Donatello protested. Splinter blinked. Would nothing ever go smoothly? "My sons, please." "No fair, you'll pick something boring," Mikey whined. "I will not. It will be educational, and you could certainly stand to learn something." Donatello shoved his glasses further up on his face, his amber eyes narrowing. Ralph elbowed Michelangelo. "Quit crying all the time. Besides, it's my turn." Michelangelo frowned, rubbing his arm. "Ow, that hurt." "Quit pushing him, Raph," Leo said, stepping in front of his youngest brother. Raph snorted. "What are you going to do about it, Leo?" Raph squared his shoulders, stepping into Leo's face, even though his older brother was taller than him. "And why are you always trying to boss me around, huh?" "That is enough." Splinter's tail cracked the air like a whip. As his sons' heads all snapped in his direction, Splinter closed his eyes and took a cleansing breath. "My sons, I have a very special story for you on this night. Please let us return to the lair." A bitter, wintry blast gusted through the drainage opening, carrying a spray of snow in. The tiny white flakes cascaded over them in little swirls. The rat's fur fluffed as white specks settled on the bridge of his snout. He shivered despite his body's natural protection, and he eyed his sons, who, although they'd just been squabbling, huddled closer to him, seeking warmth. "Come, my sons, I am eager to tell you this story." Splinter sat in the center of the faded burgundy papasan cushion, the fabric worn thin over the faux buttons, the hem he'd mended himself. His sons gathered close, each with their own small scrap of a blanket. Michelangelo carried his tattered teddy bear that, not for the first time, made Splinter wish he had access to a washing machine. He worried the boy would fall ill for the germs the bear was bound to gather as Michelangelo dragged it around by its arm. Now the boy pulled the button-eyed bear under one arm and plopped his thumb in his mouth. With the book under one arm, a slip of notebook paper sticking out just inside the cover, Splinter reached to tuck the edge of Raph's blanket under his two-toed feet. Raph's green eyes darted down to him suspiciously before he turned his head toward the nearest wall, yet the boy settled in closer against Splinter's side. The corner of Splinter's mouth tipped up. A glance at Leonardo showed him the boy had layered his fraying navy beach towel beneath the hole-filled cobalt fleece blanket they'd recently acquired. Leonardo was studiously smoothing the wrinkles and ensuring he was entirely covered. He noticed his father watching with his three-fingered hands stilled. He looked on his father with wide blue eyes. Are you ready for me to begin the story, my son? Splinter asked, lifting the edge of the blanket and pulling it up higher on Leonardo's plastron. Yes, father, Leonardo replied, as he too snuggled closer to Splinter's side. Behind him, leaning against Splinter's back, Donatello pouted. Bet it's another picture book with the alphabet beneath it, or shapes, or first words. It's never anything intriguing. Splinter turned his head, glanced down at his brilliant son. Donatello, I think you will find this story is none of those things. Donatello rolled to his side, craning to see the book Splinter now held in his paws. The boy scowled. The night before Christmas. His eyes drifted up to meet Splinter's blank face, then he sank back into his spot, fixed his gaze on a hole in the cushion near his feet. Could be worse, he mumbled. Donatello, this is not exactly the night before Christmas as you've heard it before. I wrote this story as my Christmas gift to you, my sons, although I'm afraid it does not always rhyme. 4 sets of eyes looked upon their father, and all at once they pressed closer still. Splinter's heart filled as he hoped his story would be enough, although his sons never complained about what little they had. He opened the book, glanced at the paper, and closed it again. He didn't need it. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the lair not a creature was stirring, not even a rat. Weapons were hung on the wall with care, in hopes no enemies would dare venture there. The turtles were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of pizza danced in their heads. The boys in their masks, and Sensei in his wrap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out in the sky several sirens arose, our heroes sprang from their beds to bring down their foes. Away to the street they flew in a flash, rose up from the sewers, topside in a dash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave a luster of peace to the city below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a deft team of ninjas without any fear. And their crafty old sensei so lively and quick, I knew in a moment this was no trick. More rapid than eagles, these ninjas they came, and their sensei he whispered and shushed them by name. Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo, to the top of the roof, to the top of the mall. Stealth, stealth, vanish, vanish now all. As dry leaves before the wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the rooftops the ninjas they flew, with weapons of skill and their rat sensei too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof ninjas' footwork. I had eyewitness proof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, Raphael landed quite firm from his bound. Masked all in red, with his sai in his hand, the strong turtle was ready to face any man. A bundle of trouble he had cleared away, for his brother's safety he did much more than pray. Clever Donatello's tongue peeked from his cheek as he diffused a bomb, his 5th in a week. Then he drew up his bow and lifted his chin, ready to disarm enemies and protect his kin. Michelangelo's mask encircled his head like a wreath, but his whirling nunchaku brought his foes much grief. He had a broad face and a slight pizza belly that shook when he laughed like a bit of jelly. He was nimble and quick, a right spry juvenile, and I laughed when I saw him, though his shape was reptile. A wink of Mike's eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. Blue-clad Leonardo, who led his brash team, watched over them proudly with blue eyes agleam. Leo spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, knocked out all the villains, then turned with a jerk. Tightening the mask he wore round his head, he gave a quick nod to the fire escape they fled. To sprang to his feet, to his team gave a signal, and away they all flew like the shot of a pistol. But I heard him whisper as they flicked out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a safe night. Splinter placed the book on the floor, the slip of notebook paper floating free of the pages. He eyed each of his children. Michelangelo's mouth curved up in a smile, his stuffed bear now his pillow. Raph's fingers had slipped onto the edges of Splinter's robe, his cheek pressed to the tattered cloth, a soft rhythmic blend of inhales and exhales telling him the boy was asleep. Leo's head was tipped at an awkward angle where he tried to watch his father read the story, although he was facing away from him and perched at Splinter's feet. Splinter repositioned the boy so that his neck would not hurt when he woke. Behind him, Donatello wiggled a bit. Splinter turned to remove the boy's glasses, but found him wide awake. Internally, Splinter groaned. His sons knew better than to be excited about Christmas. They did little more than read together and play family board games to celebrate human holidays. So why was the boy still awake? Would he end up reading a chapter from an encyclopedia to appease him? Donatello, are you all right? He asked, feeling the bite of cold as if it radiated up from the concrete walls. Instinctively, he pulled the boy's lavender blanket up closer around him. Donatello blinked, his lips curving into a small, shy smile. His gentle eyes darted to the paper before he reached for it, handing it to Splinter. Will you read it again, please? Okay, so special thanks to Ravenshell, who was my beta for a very long time, and she would read specifically. She liked to look at the punctuation. She made sure that I had all my commas in the right spot, I guess you could say, and everything was as it should be. She was perfect at that. Let's see. So she has baited for me a couple of different pieces. Specifically, she looked more at my poetic prose, which Be Fearless is written entirely in that prose and was very, very challenging to write. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but some people really liked it. Some people thought it was too purple prose and didn't like the flowery scenes and vivid scenes and words and textures and feelings. But that's the entire thing was kind of written to entice a feeling, elicit a feeling, and most of my feedback said that it did. This particular piece, my favorite Christmas story that I read to my family every Christmas is The Night Before Christmas. And so, and actually that's not even the real name of it. not in my old Christmas storybook. It has like, I think, A Visit from Saint Nick or something like that is the real name, but it's my favorite thing to read. So I was really excited to make this into a Turtley version of it. And I hope that you enjoyed it, even if it's not your fandom. In it, as a beta, from a beta reading perspective, I noticed adverbs, I noticed repetition, echo, I noticed, a couple of different things. I had to run on a really long sentence here or there that I guess Ravenshell made the punctuation work, but it still read really long. So there was a couple of things I noticed as I was reading it. The poem itself I thought was very good. I still think it's very good, and I like it a lot. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully have another treat for you soon. I'll see you all next time on Mysteryred Reads.